am back. Zig in the Zone. I'm Ralph Tycho of the Comfortably Zoned Network, and the best thing I have going for me today is Paulie B.
Oh, now you're just being sweet on me.
Oh, it's not. I know what you go through to do this and to put us on the air, and it's 12 weeks.
I know we've got all the hamsters on the wheels. They're running this place.
I just wanted to thank you for making the transition for me from just a podcaster to a video podcaster has been exciting, and you're good at what you do, man.
Oh, I appreciate it, dude. I've been working on it. I've been doing it for a while, but yeah, it is kind of a new skill set for me, and so it's a little different. So I'm glad that I'm here to take the ride with you. So thank you for inviting me along for the ride. So
beautiful.
What do you got going this week? How was your last week? Let's go that way.
My last week, we had a terrific show. Joanne Schomburg,
right,
Height, and Nancy Finley,
right.
Two women who know their stuff. Whatever their stuff is, they are capable women, and I enjoy talking to capable women. And as is my custom, my guests are interesting and passionate.
Right.
Whatever the subject is, they care, and the feelings that they give off make all this worthwhile.
Right. No, I agree. That's one thing your guests have in common is they're all passionate about what they do, their families, other humans on this planet, which is really great.
Absolutely.
So
today, Michael Duca is having problems with his internet, so we have a substitute, Robert Cole. And
we have a pinch hitter?
Pinch hitter. Robert Cole's going to pinch hit and talk about the first week of the season for the New York Mets.
Okay.
And hasn't been good. They're 0-4 and not looking very good.
Uh-oh.
But, you know.
It's still early, right? So
you win some, you lose some, and some get rained out. And it's early. We'll see what happens. Robert's an upbeat person and has been the Met Maven, one of the Met Mavens on Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.
Right.
And we've done that for 5 years together. So I'm sure we're going to find something positive to talk about.
Okay.
In the second segment, Fred Wallen is back. Fred and I, Fred is my radio maven, just like I'm a maven to people in podcasting.
Sure.
Fred hosts Sports Byline USA, and it's a syndicated show, and he reaches 200 markets, plus Armed Forces Radio.
Wow.
So, and he's been a radio guy for years. And I wanted to bring him back to continue the talk about politics. I am so amazed and disappointed in what's going on politically in this country.
You hear the news this morning that Trump has another gag order on him.
Yeah.
And it's because I don't know, I don't think the daughter of the judge is underage, but he's like mentioning the judge's daughter and saying they should keep out of it or they're going to get hurt or something. And so now there's another gag order, and apparently this one's going to be serious. They were even talking about if he breaks this one, that this judge probably wouldn't stop at, because there's three different things that you do. You warn them, hey, by the way, you're breaking your gag order, and this could be contempt. So there's a warning phase, then there's a penalty where they can impose a fine or something, right? And then the last thing is, like we always see on the TV shows, is they get locked up.
Immediately.
Right. And so he can't, we already know he can't pay his debts.
Well, he did cover that bond.
We know that, did he?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because
they reduced it.
They reduced it, and then
for
he
some
made
unknown reason they reduced it. What?
Well, and then his social media company
made
it. It went some crazy skyrocket over a week, but then they think it's
going lower.
They think it's going to drop to a point of where it's now. I think it's trading at $60 a share. They think it's going to go down to $2 or less.
You know what disappoints me? The harder it gets for him, and the more it becomes obvious that he's a criminal.
Right.
And no question about all of that. He's got charges, federal charges, insurrection charges.
Right.
What it does, though, it increases his popularity with the 41%.
Right.
I don't understand that. Just human nature. Things have never been as they are now. We are really in risk of losing our democracy. And I'm going to talk to Fred Wallen. You could join us in that conversation.
Absolutely.
It's sad, but interesting.
It is very interesting.
And we'll get with him. And first of all, we're going to get with Robert Cole.
Right.
Who is going to make me feel better about being a Met fan.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope so, too.
I hope so, too. A lot of changes going on in this world.
Right.
And personally, and you too, our lives are going differently than we expected it.
Oh, yeah, for sure, right.
And we're learning that we can overcome changes by being prepared for them and not taking them personally, because the world's going to change.
Right.
Not much we can do about it on some levels, but keep making a difference for the people around us, our families, and ourselves.
Right.
Take care of ourselves, Paulie.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you, brother.
We're both vulnerable because of a number of things.
Right.
Me, I'm 77 frickin' years old.
I'm counting them, man. I'm counting the candles on your cake. There's 77 of them.
Which means I had to learn something along the line. And
you did not fall off the turnip truck just yesterday. We know that.
Just yesterday. And the number one thing I've learned, and I learned this years ago, and I forget it from time to time.
Right.
Is not to let, and I'll quote the Eagles on this, don't let the sound of your wheels keep you, what did they say?
Drive you crazy?
Drive you crazy. Don't let the wheels, and you really have to, not just you and I,
right.
We really have to be cognizant of what goes through our minds and not respond. If we have a thought, we don't have to go with it. We could just dismiss it.
Right.
And instead of letting that thought creep up on you, just put it in a day-tight compartment for another time.
Right. I'm telling you.
And that makes it a lot easier. Look at that.
Yeah.
Robert Cole.
See what we're doing? We got this all queued up and ready to go. I noticed that he put his gear on, so I had to make sure we had our Met stuff up and running too.
Yeah.
And so, all right. So why don't you intro your guest, sir?
Robert Cole, Met Maven, comfortably zoned radio veteran.
What's happening, Mr. Cole?
Not much. How are you guys doing?
Just chilling in the California rain.
Yeah, a lot of changes going on in this world, and what's always nice is when baseball season gets here. What's always not nice is when the Mets lose four in a row. So
Yep.
maybe you could put things into perspective. Marty Rose, we talked to him. He is simply giving up for and when you think about it, we've been disappointed in the Mets. But I want to tell you something. When you have Lindor, um, Alexander, the catcher, and the first baseman,
Alvarez.
yes, Alvarez, and and Alonso, the first baseman, that's quite a make. And McNeil, and um,
Not to mention Dougie Flynn.
not to mention Dougie Flynn. But you know who the guy they got from the A's, um,
Sean Mania.
Shaw Mania. I was very impressed with him last night, and it
Yeah.
didn't turn out good in the end. We got a loss, but good things, good things. I followed him with the A's out here for a long time, and I was delighted when they got him. So tell me what's good and what's bad in your opinion of the first 6 days.
Well, to put things in perspective, okay, Mr. Met has gone in for psychiatric evaluation because he was seen walking around going 1962, 1962. Not sure what that's all about. Uh,
Literally? Are you
however,
serious? Oh, no. Oh, I thought that the man cracked up just being in that costume for long enough. But yes, 1962 and 1963, they lost the first 9 games in a row in '62, and the
yes.
first 8 games in a row in 1963. And I want to ask you, Robert, were you more disappointed in the Mets in their second year than in their first year?
Yeah, I mean, the first year was a historic losing season,
Hmm.
and you could only hope they would get better from there. And it really didn't. They made a couple of moves that didn't really work out. Um,
The shortstop from the Dodgers that they picked up, along with Hawkness, um,
oh, yeah, Larry Burright.
Larry Bure. And I'll tell you why that was such a bad move. They traded the most consistent pitcher, who went on to have 4 or 5 super years, Miller, not the
Yeah,
righty Miller, not the lefty Miller,
Bob
but
Righty Miller, correct.
right. And I thought that was a horrible trade. As it turned out, Tim Harkness didn't do very much with the bat. The only thing Tim Harkness did to stand out is in the picture of Jimmy Pearsall going around the bases
Backwards,
backwards.
right?
Tim Harkness greeted him at the plate.
Yes, yes.
So that's the only good thing. But Burright was not very good, and the
And they
sec
also picked up Al. They picked up Al Moran that year.
right.
They picked up David Schreiber that year.
Didn't
Neither one.
Fernandez? Didn't they try Fernandez for a while? The old Dodger, um,
Yep, not Chico Fernandez.
Chico Fernandez, right?
Chico Fernandez was there. They
And
got Cliff Cook.
Cliff. Well, Cliff Hook was there the first year.
Nope, nope. Second year,
Oh
Cliff
no, no,
Cook. Not
I'm
Jay.
thinking of
J Hook.
J
You're
Hook.
thinking of
Yes,
J Hook.
and Cliff Hook was a terrific acquisition, until his back went out 20 minutes after the trade. And it was just
Those early years, the Mets made a habit of getting guys that were number one, prospects where they were. But when the Mets got them, they were no longer, and that's why the Mets got them.
right.
George Altman, okay, Cliff Cook.
Felix Mantilla was a terrific utility infielder with the Braves, and we thought that he was going to be solid. No, he wasn't.
Well, then he went to the Red Sox and hit 30 home runs.
Right. Isn't that the way it goes?
Yep.
The other player that they picked up early on that was disappointing was Marv Throneberry for Don Zimmer. I think that was that trade. And Marv Throneberry, speaking of prospects, he was a hell of a prospect with the Yankees. Marv
Yes, he was.
And they were so deep that they had Norm Seaburn coming up, and who do we get? Marv Throneberry. And
now you have to admit though, okay, he brought some comic relief, okay, to the team. He couldn't field worth a damn. We all remember when we hit a triple. He's standing on third base all proud, and then the umpire at first called him out for missing first. Casey came running out to argue with the umpire, and one of the umpires said, "Hold it right there, Casey. He missed second also."
That's those are some memories. I was at that game. That was a double header with the Cubs.
Yes, it was.
And
yep.
Two things happened. Marv Throneberry misses third base, and I remember distinctly Lou Brock hitting a ball into the bleachers. Only the fourth or fifth guy in the history of baseball to hit the ball in the bleachers in the Polo Grounds. That was a shot at that time. And Lou Brock at that time probably weighed no more than 150 pounds. It was before he really became great with the Cardinals.
But he was never a power hitter.
Never a power hitter. And anytime you can see a triple turn into an out, and a
home run into center field bleachers.
That was a great day. I'm gonna tell you something. I couldn't find anybody in the schoolyard or among my friends to go to the game, so I went alone. And it's the first time I ever went to a game alone, and I bought great seats down the third baseline. Boom, boom, boom. I'm there early, and I catch a foul ball in batting practice, hit by Joe Pignatano. Now, an usher comes up to me. There must have been 200 people there at that time. It was very early. They opened the gates early in those days, and he says, there's a kid who, disabled, crippled, whatever you want to call him. Would you be willing to give him the ball that you just caught? And I can't promise you anything, but I'm going to try to get you a broken bat in return. So I said, sure. I will never get the opportunity to get a broken bat. I may catch another foul ball someday, but I was delighted to get Kenny Hubbs's broken bat. Now, the reason that strikes me is that there was a little down the line. It jetted out where guys would come over and sign autographs around the third base line. There was a little spot, if you remember, in the Polo Grounds. And I didn't realize I got Kenny Hubbs's autograph without knowing it. I just wrote it down. Now, or he wrote it down. Kenny Hubbs died in a plane crash a year later.
Well, that winter he was named Rookie of the Year,
Right.
and he died in a plane crash that winter in January, I think.
Yeah. And I had the bat. So, you know Marty Rose, of course. My
Of
mother,
course.
when I went into the Air Force, I knew in advance that my mother would throw out that bat. She would not save it. I knew for sure
Yep.
she wouldn't save it. And I gave it to Marty to have his mother save it. And she threw it away too. She didn't realize.
Yeah, because he then went into the service.
Right. He went into the service
Right.
a year later. That's really kind of very sad. My friend Steve and I both joined the Air Force, stationed in California. Marty joins the Air Force. He got sent to Vietnam. And the sad part with Marty's getting sent to Vietnam is we didn't even know Agent Orange existed. We had no idea. He comes home, and all of a sudden, Agent Orange takes effect, and it isn't for certain, but they suspect that Agent Orange is what caused his ALS. And
It's possible.
it's very possible.
Hmm.
And what's really sad is that they didn't tell we GIs anything about Agent Orange. I didn't find out about it until years later. And that's the price of war, I guess. But
And they also had the burn pits too that guys got affected by.
yes, and the open wounds and the scars that didn't heal. It's very scary. Very
Yep.
how the government treats us and what they're doing for the veterans. Marty's getting good care from the veterans, but
Well, he happens to be at being treated by one of the better veteran hospitals, which is in Tampa.
mhm.
It's in a good location. They have a lot of really good doctors. Some of the veterans hospitals around the country are not nearly as good as the one at Tampa.
I understand, though, nationwide it's improved. The care veterans get is improving, but oh so slowly. And
Well, that's the way government is.
yeah. Hey, let's get back to baseball a second.
Okay.
Can
Also, just to reinforce the fact that your mother was going to throw your bat out, and Marty's mother threw your bat out. Okay. I had a Roy Campanella catcher's mitt. Okay. And we had a game. We played in the mud. It was very muddy. Okay. And went home. A couple of days later, I'm looking for my catcher's mitt. And I said, Mom, you know where my catcher's mitt is? She says, Oh, yes, I threw it out. It was dirty.
I'm laughing, but I feel your pain.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you remember that till this moment.
Yeah.
That stuff like that does not go away.
Nope. Nope.
Moms sometimes are oblivious to that kind of stuff, right? It's just something dirty in their house. I was that kid. I would walk into the house after being out all day and riding my bikes and getting dirty and muddy and coming in probably smelling to high hell. And she'd go, "Young man, turn around and go back out," because I looked like something the cat wish he dragged in.
Or right to the showers.
Right to the showers. Yeah, just like
Do not
just like
pass
a game.
go.
Just,
Do not pass go. Right to the shower. And
was that
Exactly.
a ritual for you guys? Were you of that generation where it's like, oh, it's Saturday night, we're getting a bath?
well, my parents were such sticklers about not having a hole in the jeans.
Oh, really?
You break your jeans in. It takes 2 months, 3 months to do that, where it's
Yep.
soft and wonderful.
Where they
And-
feel right.
Where they feel right. And my mother would just take, like your mother, take the liberty of not respecting a kid.
Well, I'm actually really glad that you're calling them jeans, because every time I talk to my dad, he doesn't understand. He has to say, what does he have to say?
Dungarees.
Thank you.
Right. No, they
Get me my dungarees, and I'm like, sure. Let me get in my time machine, Dad. Go back to the year was.
Yeah,
but yeah, dungarees.
dungarees.
Yeah.
That's like calling soda
we-
pop or whatever, It's just kind of that thing. Wherever you landed on what side of the Mason-Dixon line you landed, what age and what year you were at, and that kind of thing. But, oh, yeah. So moms didn't get it, right? Moms just saw a dirty thing and just said, that needs to leave my home.
Well,
Now you see in Brooklyn, okay, we got our jeans patched, our dungarees patched, and you were rated on how many patches you had on the knees of your dungarees.
Oh, it was kind of like a basically
The badge of honor.
A badge of honor, if you will. Yes.
Yep.
and now you see people. It's almost stylish to see a rip in the knee.
Oh, and that's what I was gonna say. Go for it. But
No, just,
well, that's it. I mean, the '80s, we actually tore our jeans
Right.
and gave them rips, and we threw bleach on them on purpose.
Yeah.
We called them stonewash jeans. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we were
right.
doing.
Right.
And so,
And now they pay $70 and $80 to get that kind of jean.
right. I have as you know, I'm a stand-up comedian. One of my jokes used to be like about 10 years ago. In 1985, I was more faded than my stonewash jeans. And so
That's a good line.
kind of shows you
Paul.
where I'm at with things. So,
Hey, Paulie, how did you like to be introduced? Just off the subject for a second.
Oh.
As a comedian.
how do I like to be introduced?
Yeah. What do you ask the host to say?
They ask that all the time, and so I try to be really, I do give them direction, because if it's a younger host or a younger producer, they like to do things like, oh my gosh, here's a Bay Area legend, and I'm already digging myself out of a hole. As soon as I hit the stage, they might as well, instead of handing me the microphone, they should hand me a shovel. Because I'm literally, so you never build them up so much. Oh, this person's open for this person's a vet, this person's that. Just give me some simple credit. So usually it's, the host of the Edge of Insanity podcast. Give it up for your next comedian, Bay Area, Paul Brumbaugh, or something like that.
Beautiful.
Just something simple. But yeah, don't build me up. And just, but give me a good
don't
intro.
leave it to the host. Be specific about what you want.
Yeah.
Because if you leave it to the host, it becomes your fault not getting what you wanted.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, if you have a joke, like your lead-in joke, your opening joke, if you can have some sort of lead up to it, like if your host can somehow allude to whatever your first joke's going to be like, you guys, our next comedian is sorry he's running behind schedule, he's just fresh from his doctor's appointment. Give it up for this guy, and then doing something like that, and then I go, I just came from my doctor, this and that and that and this.
Right.
So if it leads into it, sure. If it can save me a little time, because usually that's what all we want as comedians. We want more time. And so if we get someone that's going to save us and make it a little time saver for us, sure, we'll take it. But yeah, just something simple. And as long
continuity in the show really helps.
Yeah, and as long as they don't get my last name right or wrong. It's right. Brumbaugh.
That's why you're Paulie B to me.
That's why I'm Paulie B to him.
I can't pronounce Tycho, let alone Brumbaugh.
I'm telling you. So, but yeah, so I mean that's it. It's just something simple.
All right. Hey, Robert, talk
yes,
a
sir.
little bit about how the Mets were built originally and how the Dodgers became much more prevalent in their draft choices, in their deals, than the Giants. And Mrs. Payson was a big Giant fan. I don't understand that.
Well, as you know, I mean, there were more Dodger fans that were upset about the Dodgers leaving than there were about the Giants leaving. You know, the Horace Stoneham's great line, "I'm sorry to disappoint the kids, but I haven't seen too many of their fathers in the stands lately." And, you know, that kind of carried over. You know, there were Dodgers on the Mets and Buzzy Bavasi, especially when Gil Hodges became manager. Buzzy Bavasi was very helpful. He was very helpful with Gil in Washington. Sent a lot of guys that they didn't want anymore. Ken McMullen, Doug Camilli, Ron Paranosky, Ed Roba.
I didn't know that. To this day, to this moment, I didn't know Bavasi's play. Bavasi was a very, very powerful guy, a terrific general manager, and I admire his loyalty to Gil, and that's an interesting fact.
And of course, O'Malley duped Bavasi as well. He made Bavasi believe that he was going to take over for O'Malley. You know, when O'Malley, you know, kind of retired into emeritus, and of course that was never going to happen. Peter O'Malley was going to become, you know, the next president of the Dodgers. But for years and years and years, he kind of dangled that in front of Bavasi, kept Bavasi, you know, part of the group, and then Bavasi wound up going to San Diego.
Yes, yes. I'll tell you a quick little story about Peter O'Malley and how I ran into him. As you know, and as Paulie knows, I worked, and a lot of our audience knows because I'm not shy about this, I worked for Topps Baseball Card Company. And I spent 13 summers riding around Northern California, Oregon, Washington, and signing players to their contracts so when they reach the majors, we have permission to use their picture. Well, Topps at the baseball meetings had a room, and they would invite everybody in for refreshments and what have you. And one year I got to go to Southern California. I don't remember the hotel the winter meetings were at, but I manned the Topps room, and I got to introduce myself to a number of people. Two of them that I introduced myself to that day that were in that room were Peter O'Malley and Grabarkowitz, who had a birthday this week on Facebook or something, and reminded me of this story. I overheard a conversation between Grabarkowitz and Peter O'Malley. Grabarkowitz says, "Mr. O'Malley, how come I was the first guy that you made a deal for, that you traded when you took over?" And Peter is such a good guy. And as opposed to his father, who was the devil himself. But so Peter talks, puts his arm on Grabarkowitz and says, "It was nothing personal. I just had to do something. I had to make some sort of deal in honor of my getting taking over."
Becoming the president. Yeah.
Yeah, and he says nothing personal, but he was one of those guys, and they had always had a lot of talent coming up. I don't know how closely you followed them when they were in L.A. in the Lasorda
Yes.
in the Lasorda years. That infield was incredible. Russell, Say, oh my
Lopes.
God, Lopes,
Lopes.
and Garvey.
Garvey.
They were together like 11 years, something like that. Unbelievable. And so whatever Peter did didn't hurt them very much. And
Well, you have to remember, in the Brooklyn years, there was no draft. Okay, and you went around and you send you scouts out, and if they like somebody, they offered them money and they signed them. And the Dodgers had money, the Yankees had money, so they got the most of the good players. And then in the 50s, they put in a rule where if you signed a player to a contract of, I believe it was more than $7,500, okay, they call it the bonus rule, then they had to stay on the team for a full year.
Koufax was one of those.
Koufax was one of those. And the only reason why Koufax didn't get sent down in 56, okay, because after you spent, it was 2 years, I'm sorry, okay, after Koufax spent his 2 years with the Dodgers, they could have sent him down in 57, except for the fact that he was on the disabled list for 30 days in 56. And so he had to do that extra 30 days in 57. And he happened to pitch a couple of really good games in 57, and they kept him. And he never spent a day in the minor leagues.
Very interesting. One of my, really, it turned out to be, he's passed, he turned out to be a great friend of mine. Norm Sherry was the person most responsible. He was Koufax's catcher when he advised Koufax, just take a little bit off the fastball. You'll be able to control it more, and it won't hurt you. And he did that, and that's what changed Koufax around. And Koufax wasn't the only great pitcher, future great pitcher on the Dodgers in those days. Another one was Don Drysdale. So Drysdale was coming up. They've been a great organization. I mean, I have to admit it.
They were able to make the shift from when they were in Brooklyn. They signed power guys that hit the ball out of the ballpark. As soon as they made the move to Los Angeles, they started signing speed guys, Willie Davis, Maury Wills, Tommy Davis, guys that could move, because the Coliseum was an abortion of a ballpark. And, they played there for a couple of years.
Unless you were Wally Moon.
Right. Yeah, moonshot.
The moonshot.
And for people who don't know, left field in the Coliseum was 250 feet away. Okay, that's Little League distance. So they erected a screen 75 feet high, okay, on top of that 250-foot wall. Okay, center field and right field, okay, was like 475, 500 feet away. Okay, so Duke Snider, was no longer a power threat when they played at home in those days. And then when they moved to Dodger Stadium was a pitcher's ballpark. and a lot good defense and speed. So they made the switch from power bats to fast players, good defense, and pitching.
I gonna bring up Vin Scully, who transcended the Brooklyn years into the Dodger years, into Los Angeles. Give me a Vin Scully memory of yours.
Well, okay, Vin Scully. I mean, we grew up with him in Brooklyn, and it was him and Jerry Doggett, who was later his partner in Los Angeles, and a couple of other, different guys as the third man in the booth. I remember, okay, and I have the video recording of it. Sandy Koufax was pitching a game in June, early June, '57, and Roy Campanella got hurt, and Rube Walker, who was the backup catcher, had also been hurt. He had stitches in his hand. Okay, and this was going to be the first time that Joe Pignatano got to actually catch. He pinch ran one time. This was going to be the first time he's going to get a chance to catch. And Vin Scully says, okay, and Joe Pignatano lived in Brooklyn, and his wife was home in their apartment with their young son. And Vin Scully says, anyone who may know the Pignatanos, you may want to run over and let Mrs. Pignatano know that Joe's getting ready to catch his first ball game in the majors. And
Now
that
that
kind of
was the
gives you an
home,
idea.
the Hamisher, we say. Um, Dodgers, they were a family. They all lived within, not all of them, but a lot of them lived within blocks of each other. They shopped in the stores. They were a part of the community. And
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think there's been another team like that in the sense where I could remember my aunt saying, because my grandfather, his sister, his brother, her brother, was a Giant fan and made me a Giant fan. And she took me aside and she says, "You're not rooting for our Jackie?" It was Brooklyn. It was their Jackie. I
Right.
don't think the great experiment of Branch Rickey would have been successful or even tried in another community. I don't think it would have worked
No,
as easily. And
no. And if you look at old pictures of the crowds at Ebbets Field, okay, you see mixed crowds. You
mhm.
know, black people next to white people, all rooting for the same team.
Yeah,
It was a different time and it was a different place.
I think it was Martin Luther King. I was Martin Luther King who, when they called him the godfather of the civil rights movement or something like that, he stopped them. He stopped the press, as it
Yep,
were. And he says, I wasn't that. Jackie Robinson made all this possible.
yep, yep.
And he changed the mores of the country. It
Yep.
wasn't easy. What he went through was his first 2 years, because he made a deal with Branch Rickey. Branch Rickey says, you're going to get a lot of shit. You cannot retaliate for 2 years.
Hmm.
Promise me that for 2 years you will let it slide off your back like ducks off of water. And
Yep.
he kept his promise, but after 2 years, he did some retaliating against those who did him wrong. I can remember Joe Garagiola
Stepping on his foot.
stepping on his foot. I could remember Enos Slaughter spiking him in some ways, and he came back at those guys.
Oh, I didn't even realize that was Joe Garagiola that stepped on his foot and injured his foot, right? And
Yeah.
then didn't he
Yes.
also get stitches in his leg at one point because not only did they slid into him or they stepped down on him or something, and
Oh, high spikes.
yeah,
And-
high
and-
spikes. There
yeah,
you go. That's the term I was looking for.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, he in '47 he played first base, and guys, Garagiola being one of them, would go out of their way to step on the back of his foot and ankle, when he was putting his foot on the base, to catch the ball. And that happened a couple of times. And then when he moved to second base, guys really went in, spikes high, trying to injure him.
Yeah. Was Gilliam a great second baseman, or was he just overrated? Let's put it that way.
He was a good second baseman. He was not a great second baseman. You also have to remember, when they brought Gilliam up, O'Malley wanted to get rid of Robinson immediately. As soon as O'Malley took the team over after the '50 season, okay, he had no use for Robinson. Didn't like his attitude, didn't like the fact that he could be arrogant at times, and he wanted to get rid of him.
And he was
When
an
they brought-
ally of Branch Rickey, who was at odds with O'Malley.
Correct. Because, Rickey signed Robinson. In fact, there was a time where they tried to say that O'Malley had as much to do with signing Robinson as Rickey did. Okay, this was coming out of the O'Malley camp when they were trying to get him into the Hall of Fame. And Peter O'Malley stepped up and said, no, not at all. Okay, that was all Branch Rickey. Okay, my father had nothing to do with that, other than the fact that he was one of the owners at the time.
Whoa.
And I thought that was pretty good on Peter's part. But once '55 came and they won that World Series, okay, he kept bugging Bavasi, trade him. They made the deal in '56 when they traded Don Hoke to the Cubs for Randy Jackson, and that was supposed to be, Jackie's swan song. Bavasi knew they couldn't win the pennant again in '56 without Robinson, and he was right. They didn't win until the last day. And then O'Malley already knew they were going to California in '57, even though nobody else did.
Peter
And he
Trunk will
told-
tell you. Peter Trunk will tell you that O'Malley knew he was going to move in like '52.
Yes.
Um,
And he told Bavasi, trade him. And Bavasi did, late December of '56. Okay, he traded him to your Giants.
right, and he was never going to report to those Giants. He had a deal with Look
No,
magazine that he wasn't going to retire until he announced it in Look magazine. And
Had he stayed with the Dodgers, he would have played one more year. I truly believe that, because I still have that Look magazine. I have that article. Nowhere in it did it say that he was going to retire right then and there. What it did say was, I'm going to leave before baseball gets rid of me. Okay. So he was going to quit before baseball said, we have no more use for you. But when that trade was made, that pretty much cinched it. The owner of Chock Full of Nuts, where Jackie was going to work, said to Jackie, if you want to play 1 year for the Giants, you have my permission. I'll hold the job for you. And Jackie said, no, absolutely not.
wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
The things we learn, Ralph. The things we
Just-
learn. Hanging out with Robert Cole here, man. I'm telling you.
And for the people that want to know why we're not talking about the Mets, okay, look in the standings. That's the reason why we're not talking about the Mets. Right?
Are we avoiding the confrontation?
Oh,
are
yeah.
we doing that?
Absolutely.
We're just waiting for the season to heat up, man. I mean, we're preseason here, so we're okay. We're doing all right, but yeah, it's a little scary, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Gonna
But yeah,
gonna
you
give
know,
you.
but,
I have a question for you. Besides
Yeah.
Sean Manaea, who pitched a terrific game last night,
Yep.
who's impressed you this year with the Mets? I want to keep it
Well,
positive.
Alvarez for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, every game I see Alvarez play, I'm more and more impressed with the bat, the way he handles the pitching staff. You know, the difference between last year and this year, I mean, is tremendous, and it's fun to watch. You know, even though it's only been 4 games, his bat's been alive. I don't know if you saw the play last night where he blocked the plate uh, to stop, a run from scoring.
I heard it.
He's
I
just
didn't see
really,
it.
really been good.
Yeah. Um, what's going on with the pitching staff, the starters? We got Diaz back, so it's automatically going to make the total pitching staff better this year.
Hey,
But
first of all, okay, I'm making fun. Everybody's got to stop panicking, okay? If this was June or July and they lost 4 in a row, there's no big deal. I mean, every team's going to lose 3, 4 in a row, okay? But because it's the Mets, it's the beginning of the season, everybody's going nuts. But, you know, Quintana's going to pitch again tomorrow night, okay, his second start. I'm quite confident that he's going to have a better start. Okay, Severino was all amped up when he made his start on Saturday. Okay, he was throwing the ball harder than he's ever thrown it. Right, had a couple of bad plays behind him. Right, so he got roughed up a little bit. Then on Sunday in Game 3, McGill comes out, and again there were a couple of errors behind him, and he had to come out of the game in the 4th inning with shoulder soreness, so he's on the DL. Okay, and then last night, of course, Sean Manaea pitched a great game, no hit ball for I think five
five
and
and
two
a
thirds.
third, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 and 2/3. Pitched really good. Tonight, Adrian Hauser makes his first start. He's the pitcher they got from the Milwaukee Brewers, and I think it's going to be fine. There's no reason, for anybody to panic. The bats, which have been non-existent up until now, other than Alvarez, they're going to start hitting at some point. And I think they'll be all right. Diaz pitched again last night, looked excellent. The bullpen has been good so far.
Nemo made
So,
a great throw. That stands out in my head.
yep.
We never had an
He-
idea that he had that kind of arm because you don't
Well,
get to
because
use it in center
in-
field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So now he's in left. But
And-
that's the play I was talking about. He made the throw. Alvarez blocked the plate, and it was a great play all around.
yeah.
And we're currently 0 in this series, right? With Detroit.
0
We
for
are
1
0
with
for
Detroit,
4.
but we
0
lost
for 1.
3.
Right.
We lost 3 before.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
And you have to, and people have to remember too. Detroit right now is 4-0.
mhm.
They haven't lost a game yet. So they're going to come down to earth. Don't know if it's going to happen tonight, tomorrow night, but it's going to happen. The hitting's got to start hitting, and it'll
Yeah.
be fine.
It
And just to
will
let
be.
you guys know, in the National League East, currently right now, with wins, it's Atlanta, it's the Braves with 3, it's the Phillies with 1, it's the Nationals with 1, and then we're over.
Over.
Ofa.
And Miami's 0 for 5.
Yeah. As
So,
well.
other than the Braves, and everybody expects the Braves to be in first anyway. Okay, everybody else, the Phillies and the Nationals each have 1 win, so no big deal at this point.
Right.
Still early on, folks. Early on. Relax. Go get your hot dog.
Okay.
Okay. Unless all of a sudden it starts approaching 9 in a row like 1962, and Mr. Met really goes nuts. But
Robert, if you didn't
It'll be-
root for the Mets or the Dodgers beforehand, who would you, if you had a clean slate and nothing, um, no emotion behind it, who would you root for?
What are you talking about now?
Yeah, in who would have you been a fan of if it weren't for the Mets and the Dodgers? And would have you, if it weren't for the Mets, would have you kept being a Dodger fan or gone to someone like the Braves or Cubs? Yeah. Just
Well,
curious
look,
where your
I mean,
loyalty was.
And only because we know baseball's in your blood. You
Right.
would you wouldn't be it wouldn't be like, what are you watching Sunday? Oh, I love my highlight. Yeah. So so I'm just telling you, we just know baseball's in your blood, Robert. So
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, had the Mets not come along, I probably would have remained a Dodger fan for a while. Um, when they had that meeting in '57, where they gave the Dodgers and the Giants permission to move to the West Coast, all the press, everybody believed that the Cincinnati Reds were going to be given permission to move to Brooklyn.
Oh,
And that would have been very interesting. I mean, because in those days, the Reds had a team very similar to the Dodgers as far as power hitters go. Kozuski, Wally Post, Gus Bell, Johnny Temple, Roy McMillan.
there was
So,
a
had
there
that
was a
happened-
year that the fans voted for the All Stars, and
Yep.
six Reds, including the guys you mentioned, were in the All Star game. And-
Well, actually, all 8 positions would have been Reds. Every Cincinnati Red position player was voted on by the fans. The president, Warren Giles, okay, put Willie Mays and Stan Musial in place of Gus Bell and Wally Post. Frank Robinson was in left. George Crowe was at first. Johnny Temple at second. Roy McMillan at short. And Don Hoke at third. And Ed Bailey was the catcher. And they all started the
George
All-Star
Crowe
game.
was called Big Daddy, I remember. And
George Crowe, yeah.
he was a product of the Negro Leagues, and I'm not saying that when you say Negro, that's what they called the.
That's what they were called.
That's what
Yep.
they
you
were
get a
called.
free pass today.
Right.
Don't worry. You're not getting canceled today. That's
Right.
what they were called. That's what they were termed.
In
That's okay.
Kansas City, in Kansas City, they had the Negro Baseball Hall of Fame.
Right.
Okay, and that's what it's called. So-
And an announcer, Dwayne Kuiper's brother, was an announcer for the A's, and he made a disparaging remark last year, the year before, using the N word for the museum, and
Oh,
he was instantly fired.
How many
I'm
of those
sure.
players made it from, let's say, and again, we're terming it, guys. We're terming it. That's what it was called. So
Right.
from the Negro Hall of Fame to the real to the Baseball Hall of Fame. How many people have actually transitioned and made that transition? Because again,
well,
we've
several.
evolved people, so we know that it's not. We don't have to call it that anymore. But it'd be nice just to be able to call it the Baseball Hall of Fame and be all inclusive. So. Go ahead.
Well,
I'm sorry.
well,
Go ahead, Robert.
they still call it
Very
that
good
in
point.
Kansas City because that's what it was.
Right.
And if you ever get a chance and you're in Kansas City, by all means, go there, do that. They have all sorts of information, old news clippings, old movies. My son and I went there a couple of years ago, and he was thrilled. I mean, they had to throw us out because he was, reading every inscription on every player, and it's pretty fascinating. But to answer your question, okay, Jackie Robinson was the first.
Right.
Larry Doby is now. Satchel Paige is now.
Henry Aaron.
Um,
Henry Aaron started out in that
Henry
league.
Aaron, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
Henry Aaron started playing for a team called the Indianapolis Clowns, which was baseball's version of the Harlem Globetrotters, uh, and a number of others. Because every year now they induct a couple of great Negro league players into the regular Hall of Fame.
And they really should. I mean, they almost should just posthumously do them all. Just roll them in. Because they all shape the game that we know and love today, right? Just like all of our heroes that go back.
Yep.
All our baseball cards, which I know you got your side.
Yep.
Robert, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's always a joy. I always have to break Zig away from this conversation to let him know that we've got another part of the show coming. But we always have a blast hanging out with you. How do we keep up with everything that you're doing, Robert? I know you're in retirement, so you don't want anybody keeping up with you.
Well, Zig knows that we have a Facebook site, excuse me, called the Mets from the Polo Grounds to Citi Field, and we have over 2,500 people in that group right now, and it keeps growing. So you want to keep up with the Mets and hear what we have to say, and Ralph put some of his stuff on there. That's the place to do it.
Well, I think this interview is going to land there, I think, at some point. You would hope so.
I would hope so.
it's-
We're going to put a copy of this interview. It's terrific having you, Robert.
It's always a blast, Robert. You're going to come back soon, right?
Yep, you let me know. Okay.
And you're a
I just
pinch-
barely had enough time to warm up today.
I know. We had to get you as a pinch hitter.
Right out of the bullpen and right
Michael
onto the
Duke-
mound, dude.
Michael Duca lost his internet, and I thought of Robert Cole just to get me
No,
through.
it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. I'm always happy to come on.
Beautiful.
All right. Thank you for joining us again. Thanks, Robert Cole, everybody. All right, I can give him an applause. There we go. Good to have him along for the ride. Thanks again, Robert, all the way from Florida there. And we're going to jump into 2 really soon. But that was great catching up with Robert. You know, it was a little bit
Absolutely.
sooner than I thought, but he's always got this great stories, great info, great insight into the game we love.
Hey, he's got the 2 basic things that we look for: interesting and passionate.
And a heartbeat.
Right. Yeah. Right.
We're always looking for a heartbeat, folks. We're always looking for a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Wow, I have other people trying to call into the show. If you're trying to call in, thank you for watching us live on multiple platforms, including Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Africa TV today. We have people that are trying to join us. It looks like somebody was trying to join us from LA. Thank you for your call in, but we're actually doing back-to-back interviews, so thank you. Just another person. Just
Good.
another person. But we're going to jump into the Fred Wallen thing really soon.
People are listening.
Right.
That's
People
good.
are listening. So, what do you got thinking for this segment? What are we doing here? What are we going to talk about?
a little bit of politics. We had Fred on a couple of weeks ago,
Right.
and we didn't really do politics justice. You know, sports are one thing. It's the candy store, though.
Right.
But once in a while, you just got to get a touch of reality in the world, in what's going on. And I got to tell you, we talked about this a little bit off the air,
Mhm.
Paulie. We are in danger of losing our democracy.
Oh, yeah, we are. Absolutely. That's why even what we do here in these studios is crucial. We all have to have a voice in this nation. Our vote has to be counted. Our voice has to be heard. And
we have to influence other people to get out there and do what we're doing.
right.
too.
Right.
Because if we don't get the vote out and Trump happens to win by some fluke, we're going to lose democracy.
Oh, I know. Absolutely. And so I'm glad that we're talking to these passionate people, these people that care about other humans in this world and our country.
Yeah.
I start to worry, and I look across our country, I start to think, wow, where's 30 or 35 or even 40% of us at this point? And so,
What's it going to be like for our kids growing up?
yeah, we always, isn't that the previous generation's thing, right? Isn't that we're waiting, just to let you know, we have Fred Wallen coming up, but he's getting all queued up and ready to go, and we are doing what they call in the biz stretching it. Don't worry, I see you're ready, Fred. But we always have to worry about that, right? The previous generation has to worry about what they're leaving their kids, what they're leaving their grandkids. Let's make sure we leave them some sort of earth that they can live on, that we don't have to have them shoot off in some SpaceX rocket to Mars or something like that. I'm going to do something else off cue. Fred, if you can do me a favor and turn your camera to the side, that would be awesome, so we can get all of you, including your banner behind you. You can't probably, it looks like. I'm going to unmute Fred. Okay, so why don't you intro Fred for us while I unmute his mic?
Fred Wallen is my radio guru. I have people who consider me to be a guru for podcasting. Fred works for Sports Byline USA. They are in about, I'd say 200 markets plus, Fred, am I correct? 200 markets plus.
Well, we're in a lot of markets. We're in on all the apps, and Las Vegas and Austin, Texas, and places like that. And not ESPN, but it's I've been doing it a lot of years at Sports Overnight America.
Good. You know what I like? That you're overseas doing, it reaches veterans. Am I correct?
Yeah, we're on American Forces.
Armed Forces, right?
Yeah.
Armed Forces
Yeah.
Radio.
Yeah.
Armed Forces Radio is a biggie because it connects people overseas. Fred, you do great work. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for our service for our troops, because they rely on that. They really do. A little bit of home.
Yeah.
So.
And I must mention Artie Source was here a couple of weeks ago, and you guys are great together. You have a rapport that won't quit. So.
Well, he's a much better golfer than I am.
Really? Okay.
You know, he made 270,000 a long time ago on the pro tour, so he's quite the golfer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no joke. And my wife beats me in miniature golf. But I was an athlete. I was going to play basketball at Arizona, but I had scoliosis, so that ended that. But he's a better golfer. We argued on the air about that. What's the hardest thing to do? People used to say hitting a baseball coming 95 miles an hour, and I would say, not for me. For me, hitting a stationary golf ball is harder than hitting a baseball coming 90 or 95. So it's a long story.
Okay. Tell me about your youth as an athlete. We talked about this before, and we have a new audience. Basically, my podcast audience is thrown in, but this is video, and it's a new show. Tell me about your experiences as a kid growing up in Culver City.
Well, Culver City is a place I wish we were still living there. My wife and I live in Westlake Village, California, about 40 miles from Culver City. It's perhaps one of the best cities growing up because of the following reasons for a kid. Sid Cronenthal ran the Parks and Recreation Department. We had like 9 parks, and every park would have a coach, and you go there after school, and we'd play baseball, football, basketball, all the sports. Started off as touch, then I went to flag football, and caroms and ping pong inside, and chess and checkers and dominoes. And then what would happen is you compete against the other you compete against the other parks in baseball, football, basketball, and then like checkers and chess and things like that. The winner at your particular park would then compete against the 8 or 9 other parks in Culver City. So Sid Cronenthal, he's passed away now, but a wonderful man who made childhood fun for most of us in Culver City.
Okay. What didn't make it fun? I know there was some adversity there growing up.
Well, my brother died at the age of 7 from leukemia. So as a senior in high school, I missed 42 days because my mother and I and my brothers would drive to Mexico for Laetrile, because it wasn't legal in California, to try a miracle cure for my genius brother Gary, who died at the age of 7 and on August 23rd. And so obviously that overrode everything else that had happened in our lives. But I was already 16 at that point. So but up to that point, things were really good in Culver City.
Okay. When did you think, I'm going to go into radio? I'm going to be a radio guy. Did you hear me? Oh.
Yeah. You said you're going to go into radio.
No, he was wondering,
no.
when did you know, wow, I'm going to go into radio?
Well, I started calling the talk shows when I was 12 and 13 years of age, and I became good friends with Joan Lennox, who was one of the producers of the nighttime show on KABC 790. So she said, come on down. And so I became, for an hour or two, on a few of the shows I actually co-hosted, and it was called the Man Who Owned Midnight. And for some reason I can't think of his name right now, but he was very kind to me, and Joan Lennox, of course, kind to me. And so 12 and 13, I started calling talk shows. When I was in college, I became a producer at KABC, and a long time later, I became a host of Dodger Talk and Sports Talk on KABC years afterwards. So, and KABC was actually in Culver City. So it all worked together from that aspect.
Beautiful. Hey, we talked in the previous segment with Robert Cole, and we talked about Peter O'Malley, and you have a friendship with him, and I'd like you to elaborate on that.
Well, when I was doing KABC, first of all, at the age of 4, I became a Dodger fan. My dad turned the TV on, and Duke Snider hit home run, and so I became a Dodger fan from that day forward. So I was always a lifetime Dodger fan. So I'm doing KABC, and I try to be objective. And if Steve Sachs can't reach first base from second base, I mentioned it. And they lost John Shelby as a center fielder late in the 88 baseball season. And I said, and people were calling up saying, how about Gibson? And I said, Kirk can do everything, but he can't throw because of his injury when he was playing wide receiver at Michigan State. And so anyways, Steve Sachs tried to get me fired. Mike Marshall, not the pitcher, the right fielder, tried to get me fired. In Marshall's case, I have no understanding of that, because I'd always say good things. He had a back problem that I had, so I understood, if you can't play 100% with back problem that he had, because I know I couldn't play at Arizona because of my back problem. Anyway, the point is, so they tried to get me fired, and they had him, and then Mike Scioscia was the captain, the catcher, and the captain. So one day we're in the can we come to the dugout? And I said, okay, and we talked, and well, we're going to bring this to Peter O'Malley. I said, okay. So Peter's assistant called me a couple of days later, and I drove there, and they were all in the room, and Peter turned to them and he said, let me tell you something. Fred's the most objective talk show host we've ever had doing Dodger Talk. He loves the Dodgers. You guys get out of here. And from that day forward, I became a very, very, it's not really a friendship. It's just that I've always liked him. And, we send cards, Christmas cards, Hanukkah cards, back and forth all the time. Of course, he lost his nephew Peter Seidler, one of the owners of the Padres, a few months ago, and of course we messaged him and everything. And so, I've only seen him like once or twice in the last 35 years. But to me, in our tough business, Peter told the players, except, and he also said to them, Fred loves the Dodgers. He's the most objective. So, I mean, it was like he knew how much I cared about the Dodgers, how much I've been a Sandy Koufax and Duke Snider fan. So it was like he told them to get out of the room, and that was the end of that.
Wow. That you were at that point. You had a mark on you. A good mark, and that probably kept your confidence up too. Not just that, but you always have that to draw upon.
Well, yeah, if I ever want to play for the Dodgers, I can call Peter. No, no, again, Peter, again, I don't know Walter O'Malley and all the stories. I know the stories about moving the Dodgers west and Chavez Vereen and the people they had removed, but that wasn't Peter. That was Walter. They were different people. And, for me, when he sold the team at 98 to Fox, it was like, a very sad day in my life. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what one of the highlights, I was talking to Robert in the first segment about Peter and a fellow by the name of Grabowskiewicz.
Yes, Billy
Grabowskiewicz.
Yeah.
And as you know, I was the Topps representative.
Yes.
And Topps, when they did, when they had the baseball meetings in LA one year, Topps invited me down to host the room. So guys would come in and I'd introduce them and introduce myself. And I had the opportunity to be there when Billy Grabowskiewicz came up to Peter O'Malley and said, he was long retired, and he said, "What's the haps? How come you traded me?" And Peter O'Malley says, "You were the first one that I traded after I took over. And you know why I made that trade?" Says O'Malley to Grabowskiewicz. He says, "I just had to do something. It was like having a new toy, and I had to make a move." And Grabowskiewicz looks at him because all these guys, and all these guys went on to stay with the Dodgers for a long time. And Grabowskiewicz was a good utility guy, but he didn't get to stay, and he missed out on a lot of great years. And they ended up, I remember O'Malley putting his arm on his shoulder and said, "It was nothing personal."
Koufax had retired. And the story goes that they had asked Billy Grabowskiewicz to say he was Jewish because this is Los Angeles and they wanted a Jewish player. Oh. And he said no. I always found that funny that they had asked him to, this is before Peter took over, but they had asked him to say that he was something that he was not. And and rightfully he said no. But he was a good player. He was a good utility player. But as you indicated, that infield was there together for so many years that it was tough to get too many starts.
Was Bill Russell really good enough to play in that infield, or he just happened to be there?
He was good. I mean, I don't think, he's not an all-star every year, but I think he was a good shortstop. I mean, he certainly ranked, not at the bottom, somewhere in the middle up. So, I mean, Ron Cey was a good third baseman. Lopes, of course, could give you the stolen base and a good defensive second baseman, and Garvey running for senator. There it was.
I'm a Giant fan from way back.
Yeah.
Okay. My most realistic, what's the word I'm looking for? it just struck me as baseball wasn't like it should be. Is when Juan Marichal hit Johnny Roseboro on the head with a bat.
August 22nd, 1965.
Right. It and I talked to Johnny Roseboro in my job as a Tops rep, and the story was, and I asked him this. I said, "Did you guys really become friends?" And he said, "As much as we could have been, given the circumstances."
After someone hitting you in
Hit
the head
in the head with the
bat.
baseball bat.
I
Yeah,
would think it being in the same ballpark, that would be a thing.
No, but when Roseboro died, one of the speakers was Juan Marichal.
Yeah. It really took away, for me, it took away a lot from the Giant Dodger rivalry. It was horrible. If it happened today, he would have been arrested and gone to prison.
Not if his name was Donald Trump.
Wow. Brings us right into what I wanted to talk about with you today, and that's, give me an idea what you. I think the world is so screwed up that I can't even describe it. Do you find it? Is there any hope for us as a society?
Nope.
If 41% of, after all that's been disclosed, all the suits, the rape, the insurrection, 41% of the populace is still behind him. How do you explain that about humanity?
Okay, so in the 1920s and 30s, the most educated country in Europe was Germany was considered number one. And in 1932, Hitler took over. So we're like number 19 in the world as far as education is concerned. So we're doomed if he wins. And I'm not a Biden guy, but what I'm saying is that there was somebody on Facebook who wrote, Donald Trump is one of the few people on earth who has absolutely no redeeming qualities. And I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
He's a crook. He's a liar. He's a swindler.
An adulterer.
I would really guess he's got more copies of Mein Kampf in his house than he's got Bibles. So that'd be my guess. And let me just, since we're talking about him, I was a folk song person when I was growing up. I was cool, everything Pete Seeger wrote, or Phil Oakes wrote, or Dylan, or Joan Baez, and Woody Guthrie.
Phil Oakes was terrific, unbelievably terrific. He was like Dylan, except he had a melodic quality to him.
Love me, I'm a liberal. But was one of my favorite Phil Oakes songs. I used to see him at the Troubadour all the time in the early 70s. Committed suicide in 76. But what I was going to say was that Donald Trump's dad, Fred Trump, was a racist, blank, 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 blank. He would not really lease or rent homes to black soldiers coming back from World War II. And there was a song written by Woody Guthrie called Beach Haven. And my mother, who was very political, had me listen to the song when I was very young. So I've been more political than I've been into sports because of that. She used to work for Adlai Stevenson. And anyway, the point is, folks, if you get a shot, go up, Google Woody Guthrie and Google his song Beach Haven. It's a story of Fred Trump, how he treated black soldiers. So if you're brought up in that household, his son ended up worse. And if you read niece Mary's book about Donald Trump, she wrote about what they talked about and what words they used at the dinner table. So when he uses words like they're hurting our bloodlines or concentration camps, yeah, he's saying or he's saying what he wants to say. He's getting it out, and these people, uneducated as they might be, and racist as they might be in this country, and jealous of anybody else who's made it, and they blame other people for them not making it, go out after migrants and go after Muslims or Hindus or Jews or something like that. And, you know, he's playing them. And what's going to happen here is that if he loses, unless he's in jail before that, even if he is in jail before that, it doesn't really, which I don't think he ever will be. But anyways, there's going to be riots around this country, not just in the capital, just I think everywhere. And again, there's no redeeming qualities in this man. I mean, he's just, but again, education in Germany, Hitler still got it. So now we're not as educated. So why shouldn't he be able to fool the people? And it's not like he's smart or anything. It's just because they're looking for every excuse, and they want to find a group that they're better than. So when he makes a crack like Shifty Schiff, they know what he's saying. The American Nazi Party knows what he's saying. The Proud Boys knows what he's saying. Or when he makes a crack about the Haitians or the Puerto Ricans, and he throws them paper towels, they know what he's saying. To people that aren't racist, they might not understand that he's like giving them a dog whistle, but he's doing that, and that's why we have a major problem right now.
And this has been chronicled when you think about it, you know, like the Woody Guthrie song. The opening paragraph of the Woody Guthrie song, Old Man Trump, goes, I suppose that old man Trump knows just how much racial hate he stirred up in that blood spot of human hearts when he drawed the color line here at his Beach Haven family project.
Yep.
And so, boy, it's nice to know that that racial inequality runs deep in that family.
Yeah, and
generations.
Niece Mary makes that point in her book. And again, people in this country don't read, so nor do they care.
Well, because we have the attention span of a crack baby. We literally do. I'm just telling you. We can't even do a 2-hour podcast. People will watch for a minute and a half and go, I've had my fill of information. Yeah. It's bad. The only kind of information this country wants, it seems like, that they're aching for is misinformation. It seems like it's kind of the, what is it, the National Enquirer or the Star Sun News or whatever. It's the juicy little tidbits that the gossip that we've lived on in this country for a long time. So
remember when we had social studies as kids?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a social study class anymore.
No, it's all about apps on your phone now. That class has been taken over by apps on your phone. Right. So
now, what would they be teaching in social studies if they taught social studies? Wouldn't that call attention to what's going on to the kids? And after all, children are our future, and should they not be made aware of what's going on?
Well, not in the state of Florida, for sure.
No.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying, it depends on who the teacher might be. And if the teacher is too open-minded, he's probably going to get fired, depending on what state he's teaching in. So, I mean, the teachers have to be very aware of that. They're trying to save their jobs, even though they're not paid a lot of money. So, I mean, it's a mess. It's beyond a mess. And it's, again, it's just this latest thing with Trump going after the daughter of the judge.
Oh, yeah, right.
Now, first of all, who else? I mean, anybody else would be locked up immediately.
Right.
That would be it. Okay, so now the judge has said you can't go after the family or or the dependents of any of these people involved. But even if he does, he's not going to jail.
Well,
So-
okay, so we were talking about this earlier. We were talking about how the only normal recourse they have when someone breaks a gag order or is in contempt of court because of a gag order is the first line of defense is the judge. You go against right in front of the judge in whatever case you're in and says, "Hey, by the way, I gave you a gag order. You broke it. Here's your little warning. Do you have something good to say for yourself?" Of course, he's not going to say anything good for himself. The next thing is they'll impose fines or levy some sort of fine against him. Well, we know he doesn't pay that. He doesn't pay his bills. He doesn't pay his contractors. He doesn't pay people. He stiffs them all the time. So I don't think the judge is going to let him do that. So the third course is locking them up and holding them in contempt of breaking that gag order. You're right. Oh my goodness, that would just be so surreal if he even just sat in a holding cell
Right.
for X amount of hours, even if they put him by himself and he's being watched by Secret Service agents outside to make sure nobody's going to mess with him, and it's just him. That would teach him so much. It would be like putting a bad child on timeout, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah.
But it'll
But
never
I don't
happen.
think you're right. We'll never see it.
We'll never see it. And again, if we saw it, there'd be riots around this country.
Oh, that's true too.
So that's the in the back of the mind of the judges in any of these cases. If I do this, I'm going to get blamed for the riots and people dying and whatever.
But if he does break this gag order and nothing happens, there shouldn't be riots in the streets, but there should be some crazy protests, like, again, safe protesting or whatever you want to call it, peaceful protesting. But, boy, we should be up in arms because he's basically what he said during the election, which was, I can go in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot someone.
Yeah.
He believes that.
Well, no, it's true.
It's true.
It's
proven.
true. Here's
proven.
our worst nightmare. You're talking about democracy. Wow. He even said during the one case for the January 6th thing, the prosecutor and anyway, they were talking. They said, "You mean he could actually go out and shoot his political opponent, pretty much, and get pardoned? If he gets elected, he's going to let all those January 6th people off. He's going to make sure we're going to be going towards another type of government because we're not going to be a democracy anymore, right? I mean, our vote will not count at that point." So,
And he's going to call up in our business. He's going to call up NBC and say who's going to get fired there.
right.
And and that's the least of our worries, because I firmly believe what he said he's going to do on the first day. He said he's got no morals. He's got he's got nothing. So there's a movie which I've never seen, but it's called The Minus Man. They should make it again, the autobiography of this guy, because there is nothing positive. There's nothing good you can say about him, and it's one of the few. Almost everybody you can say something good. Okay, so he's smart. Richard Nixon. Okay, so my mother taught me very young. She worked for Adlai Stevenson, and she actually took me when I was a young kid to the sports arena in '60 for Kennedy, but she wasn't really a Kennedy person. She was an Adlai Stevenson person. But anyways, the point is, she knew what Nixon was 20 years before Watergate, but Nixon was smart. Nixon knew when it was time to get out. Nixon hired Kissinger and whatever, and when Goldwater said you're going to lose on the impeachment, he got out. This guy, this jerk in Trump, won't get out because he thinks he knows everything, and in reality, he knows nothing. And and the craziest thing is this is what talking about maybe sports. It's very tough to go bankrupt in a casino. He managed to do that. I don't know how many casinos have ever gone bankrupt. Folks, you got to hit 52% going to bet straight bets
Yeah.
in sports. It's not easy. It's not easy to beat the house all the time. To go bankrupt, you have to really be a special kind of bad. And but what he says when they ask him questions is, "No, I didn't go bankrupt. The company went bankrupt. Who ran the company?
Who
This jerk."
skimmed money off the top? I'll bet
Yeah.
that's why it happened.
Yeah.
It,
So that's I don't know. It's like so I watch Fox and I watch Newsmax and I watch all of them, but mostly I watch MSNBC. But if I watch the others just to know who my enemies might be. And by the way, if you want to watch a very good show, and of course this guy won't be on once if Trump wins. Jon Stewart's back one day a week on the Comedy Channel, 249 on DirecTV. He's only on Monday nights, but he is really hilarious. He always has been. He's my favorite. John Oliver, of course, on HBO on Sunday nights is hilarious.
For last week tonight, I love that show. He exposes so many of these things, and I guess Clarence Thomas didn't take the $1 million bribe.
Yeah, he offered
to get off the Supreme Court, which I would have loved. Quite honestly, I would have had a little bit more respect for the man if he would have bought into that contract and got the heck out. But yeah, you're right. There's people in this industry that are shedding light onto some of these real, let's just keep it Disney rated charlatans. I don't know what else to say, but it's crazy. But yeah, I'm glad there's people like John Oliver. I'm glad there's people like Stephen Colbert. I'm glad there's people like you just mentioned
Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart is back. Here's people coming out of retirement. Biden came out of retirement. Jon Stewart's coming out of retirement because this country we're living in is just scaring the heck out of all of us. So please do something. Throw us a lifeline. Do something.
And in the worst news category, this Sunday, HBO, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 o'clock in the East, the final episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh,
great show.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Sadly or happily, I'm a lot like Larry, the fictional Larry
David?
Larry David. More so than I'd like to. I'm just crass. That's, what can I tell you? But he's right on what they set up and what he complains about. He's right about 80% of the time. So,
well, some people age like a fine wine, Ralph. You age like a fine milk left on the sidewalk on a hot summer day. So
I have a hard time with it all.
Oh, I don't blame you. We're supposed to all mellow and chill out and be able to relax as we get older, and it ain't happening for me, folks. It ain't happening.
But you know what? Radio, podcasting, it's cathartic. We get to say what's on our minds.
Not for long.
Not for long. Are they going to start regulating that? There's a lot of podcasts. Well, I think there's almost as many podcasts as there is cell phones in this country.
Well, I'll tell you what they won't do. What the people won't do. They won't stand for it eventually. There will come a time, and I'm just praying it's before the election, when people will say, wow, this is so bad that we can't elect this guy. We just can't. I was never a big Biden fan, but I liked the way he's standing up lately. I liked his State of the Union message, and I gotta say, I wish it were Michelle Obama running, just to make sure that Trump is defeated. That's all.
Well, you got more optimism than I have about the public at large here. I think they're hypnotized. I think they're mesmerized They just want to feel they're better than another group. He gives them the option to feel they're better than other people, and I think he's got a really good shot of winning. And again, if he shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, he'd still be running. They wouldn't put him in jail, And he when they took his picture, he's using that as a thing. They're out to get me.
The mugshot, right? So
mugshot,
what do you think? What do you think somebody would have to do to lose the vote share?
For him, I don't know. I don't think he could do it. I think he's got a really good shot of winning. And MSNBC said yesterday, Monday, we're doing this Tuesday, on Monday that Biden is caught up. But, again, Biden is Biden. He's not my guy. And he's not strong enough to compete, I don't think, in this case, although the State of the Union was fine. But the funniest thing, honestly, I've been watching SNL for 49 years.
Right.
And the funniest thing I've ever seen on that was the Katie Britt take thing when Scarlett Johansson.
Did the one with the answer from is that what her name was? Yeah, Katie Britt or whatever, the Republican answer to the State of the Union address.
Yeah, and then 2 nights later on SNL, Scarlett Johansson did such a good job that I told my wife, I said, "Is this AI?" I didn't think right away that it was. And Scarlett Johansson, of course, is the wife of Jost.
Colin Jost from the head writer and Weekend Update correspondent.
Yeah, right? And that's my favorite segment on the show. It's not.
It still is, right? It still holds up. It still holds up from season 1. I mean, that's one segment that I always catch the cold open. I try to catch the monologue, and I always catch Weekend Update.
That's you and me. We're in the same exact thing I do. That's it. And all the stuff in the middle, I'm not interested in. I see the end of the singer, and then I stay tuned for the news thing, and that's it.
I'll watch the musical act for at least one song just so I feel relevant. And so I go, what are these kids up to nowadays? What are they listening to? What are they watching? And half the time it's like, oh, wait, my kid listens to that song.
Musically, I miss Aykroyd and Belushi very much. God, they were great.
Oh, the Blues Brothers?
Yeah.
The show's not what it was, before. I mean, there were, everybody, even the people that had just, quit the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
McKinnon.
Yeah, see, Kate McKinnon's like my favorite. Oh my God, she's so talented.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not the same, but it's still something on a Saturday night if you're home to laugh for a few minutes, but they do too many reruns also. I mean, it's like I don't know, of the 52 weeks, what do they do? 25 shows or 22 shows?
Right.
It's not enough, and something big happens, and they're in a rerun situation. The time they come back, whatever big happened. Hey, listen, I do want to say something else since we're talking politics here. Bibi Netanyahu, and I can't pronounce his name, never will.
Netanyahu.
He's got to go. The end of it. He's got to go.
Oh yeah, because of the bombing last night or the raid on the civilians and stuff.
Oh, what happened last night?
But let me backtrack and then we're going to jump into that because I can't go into that and then go back to SNL. One thing I'll say about SNL as we're leaving that conversation is that's always been a dream of mine. I'm a writer and stand-up comedian and improv. And so I'm 56, going on 57 this month. You listening, Lorne Michaels? I'm ready for my shot. Give me a shot. I'll come out. I'll give you, what is it? You do the, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for?
The intro?
No, they have you do an audition. I'll do an audition for you. I'll do a few characters. I'm 56. I'll be your oldest starting cast member on SNL. So I'm ready. I'm ready to take it on. So, Lorne Michaels, you got my email. I know you do because I've been stalking you for years. Now, let's get into Netanyahu. So, last night there was humanitarian aid that was being delivered by, like, I forget who it was, but it might as well be Meals on Wheels.
Right.
It was Red Cross, or it was somebody important. All they were doing is getting humanitarian aid, and it was food
Yeah.
to the Gaza Strip. They got attacked and lost their lives.
Yeah.
And so Netanyahu goes, oops, sorry, my bad, this morning. It was us. Yikes. That's the casualties of war. And it's like, really? And go ahead, Fred. I know you want to jump in too.
Is friendly fire? Is that it?
No, it's
No,
the cost of
it
doing
wasn't even
business
that.
in a war, basically.
Just a mistake.
Yeah, just a mistake. Oops, my
Look,
bad.
he's about as crooked as Trump is, and the only way there are criminal charges ready for him once he's out of office. So that's why he's got to play this very right-wing game of never ending the war. Because the point is, you see the people now in Israel he must go, he must go, he must go, but he's not going to go unless he's pushed. And I don't know how that's going to happen. Eventually, he's going to go too far. But there are criminal charges against this guy. They call him Bibi, B-I-B-I, as his nickname. He's got to go. There was a song in the mid-'60s by a Harvard professor, Tom Lear, and he says, in one of the lines in there, paragraphs in there, it says, the Catholics hate the Protestants and the Muslims hate the Hindus and everybody hates the Jews.
Everybody hates the Jews. That's
Yeah.
And what he's doing, he's making the world hate the Jews. And they already lean in that direction.
Right.
So it doesn't take much more. And okay, the October 7 was horrendous, but Bibi must go. It's the end of this, okay? One of the reasons, okay, if you're a normal leader in Israel, you don't treat the Palestinians as he was treating the Palestinians. Apparently, they have to carry a different ID color card to say they're not Israelis, they're Palestinians. Give me a blank break. That's what, we did in this country, with blacks versus whites. Give me a break. So they became hostile. Hamas can push the people to do what they did because of the fact that they're treated as poorly as they were by this guy, Bibi. Israel has to have another leader who's more sensitive to the thoughts of Palestinians or other people besides the Jewish people in Israel. And I don't think the October 7th thing would have happened. Bibi caused that. And now he's caused that and 30,000 other people to die. We need a Nuremberg thing against this guy.
We also need the world to know that it's Iran backing up Hamas.
Yeah.
And all
But
this.
they have but see, it's easy to push. It's easy to get more people involved with Hamas if the people in Israel that aren't Israelis are treated as poorly as Bibi has treated them. This is his second term. I mean, he was knocked out. Then I don't know how he got back in. And the Supreme Court doesn't do anything there, just like it's not doing anything here. And it's like he stays in power. And what happened yesterday was just horrendous. 7 people that were trying to get food into the starvation areas were killed. And then he says, oh, it happens in war. But if you're not in war, it doesn't happen. Get the hell out of there.
Well, okay, so all these dictators, if it's not Netanyahu, and I say people in power, I guess I shouldn't just say dictators, although Trump is really rapidly becoming a dictator. Literally, the only thing that's going to stop these people, and we live in a digital age, folks, have your phones. It's like these police officers that are doing bad stuff. You get your phone out and you start recording. So these people in power, like the Trumps, when they get caught hot on a mic or on a camera, people really see it. It's not like, it's actually, unless you believe in the deep fake, the deep state stuff where, oh, that video was doctored, that was photoshopped, that's not really whoever it's supposed to be. But they need to catch these people on tape. I mean, I think the most detrimental thing to Trump was during the election was the grab them by the, it's the net, what was Access Hollywood tape. Same thing with Netanyahu. If they actually had him on video ordering some of this stuff and it got out there, there would be riots to the point of where they would have a revolution in that country and he would be taken out of power. Maybe that's what has to happen. I hate to say, sometimes a little bit of violence might be able to get us in the right way. And again, violence is not a good thing. But when you're talking about these crazy individuals that are in power and in control in this world, what are we to do?
Where is the CIA when we need it most? Is there some rogue person that can come in? I mean, that's...
I want Liam Neeson from the Taken movies with a certain set of skills to go in and do what he's got to do. I don't know, folks, but there has to be something. Isn't there gonna be a happy ending to this all?
From talking to Fred, no. I mean, Fred, you're a pragmatist. You're a realist, and
when I was a kid, let me just say something. The reason I'm where I'm at, my mom was very political. My dad wasn't. If there was a movie on TV, and I'm not putting you on here, and I'm 8 or 9 years of age, and John Wayne would come on, my mother would say, "Republican, bad guy." I swore to God. Okay? If it was Adolf Manju, she would say, "Republican, bad guy, hates Jews." So I got into this very, very young. So that's why, if I'm a pragmatist, I can see the dangers. Yes, it can happen here. It already has happened here. With Trump being in charge. I mean, how many people died, at the border? How many babies were separated from their families? Nobody cares because he's in charge.
How about the COVID thing? How many people died unnecessarily from COVID?
Yeah, because you see, he can't have any negatives under his administration, so it doesn't exist. And then a week before Easter Sunday of 2020, he said it's going to be gone by Easter Sunday. Yeah, it was gone, and 1 million people were gone.
Yeah.
So soon afterwards. So it's like, that's him. So there are no positives about him, and he's got a shot to win. And and I'm going to blame going back to 2016. If the DNC hadn't cheated and given Hillary the shot,
absolutely, Bernie would be president. Would have been president.
Trump would have lost the first time, and we wouldn't be in this situation.
I was a voter. I was a voter in that primary, and we were disenfranchised. That's all. So you got to blame the Democrats, but you also have to blame the supporters of Trump, the blind supporters, the stupid asses out there that
call them what they are, lemmings. They're following the next one off the cliff.
Yep.
So, all right, we're in the bottom of the 9th inning. 2 outs, bases loaded. We're ready to close out this show. Fred, how do we keep up with everything that you're doing, my man?
Well, it's just Friday and Saturday nights, 10 p.m. Pacific and midnight. Both nights we do Sports Overnight America, and of course Ralph's been on there many times. And this week coming up, we've got MJ Ward, and we're going to talk about next week's Augusta Masters, and he's the editor at Golf Today, and we've got various authors every week, and it's a lot of fun, and we get a little political, and I'm going to, of course, ask MJ Ward on this show this Friday night what kind of golfer is Trump, and how he can win 2 championships at his own golf course. And by the way, I got to say this one final thing about him. We talked here for a half hour, the lowest of the low this man is. But the one thing that people don't seem to remember, and I do, because I lost my brother to leukemia, Eric and Donald Trump stole $2 million from St. Jude's. St. Jude's has saved thousands of children's lives, finding a cure, not a cure, but being able to save 80%. My brother got the same kind of leukemia now. 80% shot of living. Okay, that's because of St. Jude's and Danny Thomas and
Right.
Marlo Thomas. And they had a golf tournament in New Jersey, and they stole $2 million from the kids
Wow.
at St. Jude's. There is nothing lower on earth. But if you told that to his people, they wouldn't give a blank.
Yeah, that's why I say the enablers are to blame as much as Trump. Well, not as much as, but quite a bit. What can we do as citizens? Just get out the vote. If every one of us who have our beliefs convince 5 people to change their minds,
Right.
we can make a difference.
How many
That's it.
friends have you? How many friends have you lost on Facebook?
Oh,
I've lost a lot.
I have too. I
Okay.
have too.
I lose something that's a lot more painful than Facebook friends. I lose audience members. I walk people. I'll start doing jokes and I'm like, uh-oh, I walked into Trump country. And so I've been known to walk a table or two. And every venue I go into, I try to get them more business. That's kind of my thing. I like to make people feel good about themselves. But when there's somebody in this country, or when there's so many people in this country that are trying to drag us all down, it takes the little guy. And what I mean by little guy is, 225 pound, 6'6" little me to try to bring a little bit of levity and a little bit of reality to your lives. And so, yeah, I think it takes a village to raise this child of a country that we have. And so,
Yep.
Well said.
all right,
Fred,
we're at that time.
thank you for being here, my friend. Keep coming back.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate you. Thank you very much, Fred. And again, we'll definitely check everything out. You're going to have another subscriber by the end of today for Friday shows. Again, Fred Wallen, and we'll see you real soon, right, buddy?
Yeah, it's yeah. Thank you, guys, and let's hope for the best. Is all I can say.
That's it. Absolutely. Back here live in studio. Zig, what do you want to shout out before we get off air? I want to do a cheap little plug, and it's not for the studio for once. Isn't that crazy?
Well,
We love Edge Studios. We
you know,
love to keep these doors open here.
We've talked about what motivated me to get a video podcast,
Right.
mostly. I wrote this book, Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pineball,
Right.
and
Which I'm going to put up on the screen. You guys can see. Go ahead.
I wrote it with George Grimm, and I wanted just to say George has been struggling health-wise of late. Marty Rose has been suffering. It's not good getting old.
No, I get it, man.
So what we need to do is take care of ourselves better so that when we do get old, we aren't suffering as much as we can unnecessarily. I'm not talking about Marty. I'm not talking...
Just in general.
in
Absolutely.
general.
We got to take care of ourselves.
Absolutely.
We absolutely. And if I didn't have you to remind me of that weekly, because I'm beating myself down all the time, and if I didn't have the Zig man here keeping me in check, I don't know, man.
I got to do something. When I see you struggling with the same things that I've been struggling with all my life, I just want you to be better.
Me
I want
too.
us all to be better.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to do that cheap plug. Here we go. I'm going to be on a show. That's right, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's called Comedy Dish. What is Comedy Dish? It's an international podcast with co-host Rick Wright, and he's out of London. But out of LA, I have my good friend Stephen Allen Green. Stephen Allen Green will be hosting the show. And again, it's Comedy Dish tomorrow, 2 p.m. PST. It's an international podcast. Get that wherever you can get podcasts. I believe it's on a thing called Zoomcast.
Talk to me a second about the late Patrick, who was
Patrick Carlin?
Patrick Carlin, who I've heard his podcast with you. he was absolutely terrific.
Yeah, and we're actually coming up on the anniversary of his passing, which is also very coincidental. My birthday, April 16th. We lost him last year. Well, what can I tell you about Patrick Carlin? Patrick Carlin was the older brother of George Carlin, but that shouldn't take away from his personality whatsoever. This guy was as real as possible, very unique, passionate. You talk about a man with passion. The man had passion for his family, his wife, and the world we live in today. And it was funny because he, at 89, at the end there, he was almost 90. He was like 89. He literally could laugh off the stuff that we are really taking to heart in this country. He could laugh at some of the idiosyncrasies of all these people and keep it in perspective so that he could go about his day and be a positive force in his life to the people that he touched. So, my thoughts, all my vibes go out to that guy. I loved him so much.
Where can people go to hear your podcast with him?
They can hear that at edgestudiosonline.com. That's right, edgestudiosonline.com. Go to Studio 1A or 2B and listen to a live feed. Our live feed has episodes of The Edge of Insanity, which is featuring Patrick Carlin for the 420 shout out, along with the Edge crew, Mistress Christine, Brandon Ray, and Kit Marie Clayman, and myself. You can listen to it there. You can also check it out where podcasts can be heard. Also, you can go to SoundCloud. Check this out. For the last year of his life, he was actually doing a podcast out of Hollywood, out of his son's apartment in Hollywood, and it's called the Woodstock Connection. Patrick's Woodstock Connection. Patrick's Hollywood Stock Connection on SoundCloud. I'll put a link down below this so you guys know. It's been so long since I've thought about even that podcast. It's so great to hear my friend's voice, but I miss him so dearly. And another friend, I love you, buddy. Thank you for having me a part of this podcast. I appreciate it.
No. Thank you for making this podcast what it is. And I'm grateful.
So am I. All right, for Zig and myself, we're out.
We're out. Thank you again, Paulie.
We'll see you next week here,
All right.
11 a.m.
Thanks to our guest, Robert Cole.
Oh, that's right.
And
Robert Cole and Fred Wallen.
Wow. Nice show.
What a show.
12 in a row.
12 in a row. It's almost a baker's dozen.
Almost.